I don't want to waste your time, so there won't be an intro. In this video, I'm going to be showcasing what I like to do when I'm solo queuing on Clubhouse. I feel like that on YouTube, there are a lot of map guides that focus on a team strategy, but it's kind of hard to get that to work in solo queues. So here you're going to see a few somewhat specific strats that work in every elo and are not reliant on any kind of help from your teammates. If you only care about the strats themselves and not about my explanation on why they work the way they do, there are timestamps in the description, so you can skip around. First of all, let's talk about how you should approach solo queuing in general. So I'm talking about your mindset, the game plan you have while you're playing. Obviously, the main differences in solo queue compared to real team-based Rainbow are the loss of communication and coordination. Because of that, you can't really rely on your teammates, and it would be a mistake to do so. That's also the reason why you end up with a lot less information than usual. If you're playing with a team, you should always have a somewhat decent idea of where the attackers are and what they're currently up to. But in solo queue, you never really know. Okay, so how should these differences influence the way you play the game? First of all, the reliability aspect. You can't trust your teammates to correctly play important positions. If you do so, you're setting yourself up for failure. Ideally, it's always you who has the most potential influence on any round. And the easiest way to make sure that you are always relevant is to think about where you're playing. Right off the bat, the relevance aspect eliminates any I hide on the other side of the map kind of strategy. Yeah, it's cool to pull off a mad flank, saving the round, but more often than not, your team just loses control of the objective and you are left in a 1v3 retake. If this 1v3 retake situation happens a lot to you, then I think that the positions you are playing are not relevant enough. So you definitely want to play closer to the objective. But don't go all the way and play like you're rooted inside the objective, because just as you can't trust your anchors to hold side without your help, you also can't trust your roamers to effectively waste time without your help. And that is just as important as losing control of the side. Because realistically, you're not winning if you're playing a 2v4 onside with 2 minutes left. So where do you play then? I think you should be playing in a spot that is both easy to defend on your own and also flexible enough to help both anchors and roamers depending on what's going on in the round. Most of the time, this means playing in a roam that is adjacent to the objective or right above or below the objective with an easy way to rotate up or down. In practice, you often have to make a trade-off decision between flexibility and how easy it is to defend, but you should still keep those general goals in mind. The second most important question after where to play is what to play. Now, this kind of depends on what kind of a player you are, but I guess the whole point of this is to show how I play solo queue, so I'll just talk about what I like to play. I touched on this before, but what I really hate about solo queue is the lack of information. I'm not an Ash Jaeger main, I can't just run around and click heads. I need to know what's going on so I can make a smart play that doesn't rely on outgunning my opponents. And coincidentally, that's kind of why I dislike solo queue. But anyways, in order to counter this lack of information, I basically play exclusively Legion with a bit of Pulse mixed in. I think that Legion is the absolute strongest solo queue operator by a wide margin. 2-speed and impact grenades make you flexible, his gun is good, and most importantly, your goo mines give you an insane amount of information without having to ever check your camps. The only time I'm not playing Legion is when there's a lot of vertical play involved, or if it's difficult to find a suitable area to play in. Okay, so now that you have an idea of how I approach solo queuing in general, let's talk about defending Armory on Clubhouse. For me personally, this is not a side where I would use Legion on, because it's pretty difficult to shallow roam on this map, and deep roaming would violate the idea of being close to the objective. So, if I'm playing on site anyways, I want to switch to another operator that lets me know what's going on and gives me the tools to influence the round in some shape or form. So in this case I pick Pulse. Since I'm 3-speed and I don't have a lot to do in the prep phase, I go get the hatches. But more importantly, I hunt for drones. This is something that even high elo players don't do often enough, but if you manage to destroy 3 or 4 drones in a prep phase, that really goes a long way when it comes to the late game. So what I'm doing right here is what I call playing on the edge of my boundary. Being right here, 20 seconds into the round, there's simply no way to die. It's impossible to be cut off from my escape route, and given how close quarters this area is, and how many corners there are, it's unlikely for any attacker to be walking right behind this drone. That means that in the worst case, I just get to kill a drone for free, which wastes time and utility. and after I'm being spotted for the first time, I just leave immediately. So now that we're actually forced to play on-site, let's figure out the most influential spot. It should be a position in which you can collect a lot of information, while also giving you a lot of different ways to influence what's happening on the other side of the objective. In this case, playing below kitchen is probably the most optimal choice. We are pulse, so we can pressure Hibana or Termite whenever they try to blow the hatch, and we might also get a kill on Bug or Sledge when they are opening the floor. While we're on the topic of that, don't just throw your C4 at the first possible chance. The attackers worrying about a possible C4, and I'm playing defensively as a result, is almost as strong as getting a C4 kill itself. But as soon as you use the C4, you lose a lot of pressure that you had on the attackers. Of course, this doesn't mean that you should never throw your C4. If you have a safe kill, and by all means go for it. I just wanted to call attention to the concept of pressuring your opponents by not using your C4. Okay, so besides the immediate kill pressure we get by playing below kitchen, another plus point is the amount of information we can get. Obviously, we can see everything in kitchen, but we can also see dirt tunnel and main stairs, so we basically know what's happening on one entire half of the objective. And if we know that there is nothing on our side of the map, then we can safely assume that the attackers are on the other side of the map. Okay, so now we have established that we have a lot of information at our disposal and that we are in an influential position because we can deny the kitchen hatch. So the last point we should check is whether we are also in a position to defend the other bomb site. And playing below kitchen certainly allows you to do that. Apart from denying the church breach, as you just saw, we can also defend against any kind of blue take, because unlike this game, there typically is a rotation between church and armory, which allows you to contest both exits of blue. So I think that by now it's pretty clear that playing here is insanely powerful, especially as you aren't reliant on any of your teammates. And if the attackers don't pressure you, then you can just continue to sit there, because there's no need to leave. You can do everything that you want to do from this position. So what should you do if the attackers are trying to clear, which happens reasonably often? If they only open the kitchen hatch, I just continue playing there. You have a lot of room to move around, and if you are forced to rotate away, you can just peek up the hatch and you are at an advantage in that fight. Even if the attackers bring a bug or a sledge, I will typically continue playing below them for a pretty long time. You still get your C4, and it's actually surprisingly simple to get a kill by aggressively peeking the holes in the floor. The only time I leave are either when I feel like the pressure is too high, maybe because there are 3 guys trying to kill me, or if one of them opened a hole from main stairs into Armory. If that happens, I just leave immediately, since there's no way you're contesting both horizontal and vertical angles at the same time. Alright, let's get to the second best objective, which is going to be cache server. Again, we want to find a spot that is both easy to defend and close enough to the objective so we can influence both bomb sites. The only spot that would kinda fit the description is garage. I say kinda because playing in garage is not ideal in the sense that it's somewhat hard to rotate out of there, and sometimes the attackers can just overwhelm you. However, I'd still call it a power position, mainly because it's relatively easy to win the common gunfights you have there. We are going to reinforce garage, and our goo mines are going to be used in positions that we can't influence immediately, like cache stairs, and in positions that will help us defend garage, like the small steps towards garage. As long as these goo mines are up, I don't need to worry one bit about that part of the map. Of course, we are also opening rotation between garage and server, so we can actually defend the objective. Oh, maybe it's smart to do that at the start though, so none of your teammates reinforce that. Actually, defending garage is pretty straightforward. You play on the rafters, and whenever you see feet, you shoot. There are 2 separate things that are working in your favor here. The first is the difference in height. As long as you're standing behind one of the 2 barricades, you will always either see their feet first, or they are forced to peek you while proning, and both are really easy to deal with. The second effect is something that apparently not too many people know about. It's one of the only spots where shadows are actually important. The sun on this map is shining from the north, which doesn't really make sense, but what it means is that whenever an attacker is peeking from the north side, which is left from your perspective, you're going to see their shadow before they peek. Together, these 2 things just make it really awkward to clear garage, and in turn, pretty easy to defend. Another thing that you can do to play it even more safe is to use the small pixel angles that are created by the barricades on the rafters. but I personally think that you are in enough of an advantage already, so you might as well stand up normally, so the chance of you actually finishing someone off is higher. This is a good example for how strong lesion mines are. If I didn't have one on the stairs, maybe the mirror wouldn't have noticed, and the attackers could have sneaked up the cache stairs. If she did that, I would be in a pretty shitty situation, because I can't really defend cache if we lose control of cache stairs. This impact right here is another way to influence yet another part of the map, but you don't want to throw the impact at the start of the game because it weakens your position on the rafters a bit. In this situation it's fine though, because no opponent would go through the garage door in a 2v3 situation. Here's why holding garage really shines though. The attackers have opened up the wall in construction, and I have a textbook crossfire with every teammate playing on cache stairs. And I can also control the CC window to my left. So playing in garage is good against a construction take, but it's also not bad against attackers that breach the server wall. Once the wall is opened, you need to be a bit more careful with how much you move around, but once you are familiar with which parts of the rafters you can see from the server breach, it's not that difficult to play in there. And at this point you can also use the pixel angles along the barricades, because as long as you lie down, it's straight up impossible to be hit from the server breach. The last objective I'm going to be covering is Gym and Master. The problem here is finding a nice and central position. Cache and CC are too far away from the jacuzzi breach for my liking, and while playing from below is technically possible since the floor is destructible, I wouldn't recommend it because rotating up main stairs can be pretty much impossible in the mid and late game. Construction kinda fits the bill, but I don't like the gunfights you have to take there after losing cache control. So I guess we're back to anchor duty. Luckily, there's a nice way to place the shield on the bed so that it creates a small pocket where you are safe from both the master and gym window. In theory, I would again play on the edge of my boundary here, which would mean being in construction and shooting 1 or 2 drones until I move back to this spot. But for some reason the sounds kinda confuse me, and I thought they might already be in construction, which is why I took it slow. Here the round kinda falls apart, and this is the reason why I don't like anchoring in solo queue. At the moment, I just don't have any influence on what's happening. And sure, I can blame my teammates for dying here, but that doesn't bring the round back. If you think too much about what your teammates are doing, you get blinded by the rage and you stop looking at your own gameplay. You know, it's always easy to find mistakes in the play of others, but you're much better off trying to find mistakes in your own play, because in the end, that's the only thing that will make you improve. The last thing I want to talk about isn't solo queue specific, but I think it matters more if you're solo queue. I'm talking about taking risks when you or your team are at a disadvantage. In this situation it's a 2v4, and it's really only a matter of time before they drone me out and push me. And I don't like sitting still while everything around me falls apart. So here, the only way to even have a chance of winning is to make an aggressive and risky play. And it wasn't even a stupid risk to take, because I figured that the blitz must be out of bullets by that point. Sure, on average we still lose that round, even with me pushing, but I'm 100% sure that I improved my odds by a lot by pushing there. Alright guys, that's it for the video. I hope that you learned something useful, and if you want more solo queue specific strats, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.